Hello and welcome to Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. I'm your substitute producer, RJ Malik, and joining me is our host, Alec Quaid, certified financial planner with Potterack Capital Advisory. Alec, how you doing?
I'm great. RJ, how are you today?
Doing well, doing very well, and it's nice to meet you. And I'm really looking forward to what we're going to talk about today, which is the topic raising kids to make smart money choices. So let's start at the very beginning. How do you start, or I should say, when do you start talking about finances with your kids?
Well, I guess as early as possible. I have a one child, a 4 month old, so that might be a little too early. I don't think he'd really comprehend much. Obviously, dry sarcasm there. You don't know me well enough yet to know that that's my dry sarcasm. Um,
Okay.
but I'd say early, as soon as I think you could start in the toddler phase. I remember growing up, having some conversations with my parents about money and budgeting and things like that when I was, maybe 5, 6 years old, is the earliest I remember. And I think that's super important to just, even at its simplest form, start teaching your kids, what is this whole money thing? Like, how does it work? Basic stuff, and they'll remember that. And because I remember that, and it'll start to shape sort of how they approach their finances going forward.
So keep it simple. You lay it out for them, keep it simple, but you're getting them used to hearing people talking about money. So then the next step would be then moving on to when they're going to school now. Now they're in elementary
Yeah.
school.
Well, and to that point, RJ, I think money becomes very taboo, even within families. I see it all the time with families, even when we have adult children of clients, and let's say they're the executor of their estate or they're trustee of their trust or something like that. Even there's families I see that their kids who are supposed to be the executor of their estate don't even really know what's going on with their financial situation. Our encouragement to clients is be open about it. If you're going to, especially if you're going to entrust a child with financial responsibility after you're gone, be open about it. And I think that can start from the very beginning, when you have small children, and just being open about your financial. I mean, obviously, when they're really young, I think it's basic stuff. Let them pay at the grocery store. Teach them about how you have to save money to buy that pair of shoes that you want, or that video game that you want, or um, when they get an allowance, have them set aside some money to save, whatever it may be. Play Monopoly, for Pete's sakes. Play Monopoly Junior, whatever, games like that, to just start to put in their mind, like, this is how money works and how it is going to impact you in the future. But going into elementary school, obviously, from personal experience, I don't have that, but I have lots of clients with young kids, and I hear lots of different great ideas that I'm certainly going to implement for my son when he kind of gets a little bit older, and future kids that my wife and I may have. One of the things that I heard from a client that I really liked was they have different allowances for different chores. So very simple, right? So maybe taking out the trash is this much, and putting the dishes away is a different amount. Teaching them that different jobs and different chores have different values assigned to them. That's a real life lesson in there, right? Different jobs pay different amounts, and things that are harder may typically earn you more than things that are easier. Basic things like that. And then when they kid gets their allowance, weekly, monthly, however you set it up, I've seen families, sort of mandate that X percentage gets set aside in the piggy bank for savings. So, all right, little Jimmy, here's your $10 allowance. $1 of that has to go into your savings for the future, or for that pair of sneakers that you wanted, or whatever. So you're teaching them saving, you're teaching them delayed gratification, which is a huge habit that should be formed if you want to be successful financially long term. Just understanding what delayed gratification is, you're innately teaching them in that. Then I've also seen them, some families who want their kid to, sort of be have a generosity mindset, set aside a certain amount to give away. So maybe another dollar has to get set aside, and you and the child decide, well, who are we going to give this to? Are we going to go give this to our local homeless foundation? Are we going to give this to our church? Are we whatever? Something that is impactful for the child and the parents. There's just so many great conversations that can come out of that when you sort of structure it that way, and you're teaching them so much, even from age 5, 6, 7, whenever that starts, sort of dependent on the child. So look, sort of a long riff there, RJ, but I think there's some nuggets in there.
There are some really good points, and as I was listening to you, one thing that stood out to me was when you said give different dollar amounts for different chores, for different jobs. Because when I remember when I was a kid, I got the same amount of money for the same 3 or 4 things I did every single week. So I didn't put a dollar amount on which was tougher, which was easier, and things like that. I think that's a great idea and a great lesson to teach kids. So let's move on because there's a lot more information to talk about. Middle school. And I remember when was in middle school, and I'm going to date myself here. I was a newspaper boy. I delivered newspapers. And that for me was a great lesson. Going out, delivering the papers, it was 7 days a week. So I had to work every single day. And then I had to go out and collect the money every week. And, sometimes I get nice tips and sometimes I wouldn't get tipped at all. And it was just, I was trying to figure out what I did wrong. But I think that's, having having a job as soon as possible is a really, really good lesson for kids who are, 12, 13, 14, 15, that age.
Yeah, I think having a job, especially when you get to middle school and maybe even definitely even as you get into high school, is extremely important. There's lots of invaluable lessons that you learn from. I'm going to go work and earn this money myself, not just even from a parent's allowance. And I remember one of the jobs I worked for a while was commercial landscaping, and I'm a big fan of having just my personal opinion, having a child work a manual labor job. It made me think, and one of the lessons my dad instilled in me was, well, you can work manual labor job for your entire career if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great, but it's hard on your body. So you can also choose to work your brain really hard as well, and become intelligent in whatever area, and have a career that's around your intelligence in your head instead of using your hands. Both are great. There's not One's not better than the other, but that's one lesson I remember learning as well. I don't want to do landscaping the rest of my life. This is just me. Again, nothing against landscaping, but it was a great way to learn that by actually having a job. So
Yeah, I agree. I actually installed lawn sprinklers when I was in high school. So that, a very manual job. And I grew up on Long Island. So when we were installing lawn sprinklers, I would help out during the weekends in March and April, and the weather was not very predictable, and you'd get wet and cold. It would be, it'd be a tough day. And then during the summer, because you had to get the work done, I mean, I would start my day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there were times I did not get home until 11 o'clock at night. So you're right. The lessons that you get taught are invaluable, and it also lets you or teaches you that hard work does pay off. Because my boss was good in rewarding me when he knew I was putting in long hours. So there are so many lessons to pick up doing manual labor. And I agree with you. And things are changing. I have an example. My nephew graduated from high school, and my brother, he knew he was not a college type kid. He knew sitting in a classroom was not for his son. And his son also knew it, and they had a long conversation. And he is now an electrician apprentice, and he's going in that direction. It's a great career, as you point out, but he knows what he's good at and what he's not good at. And sitting in a classroom for another 4 years was going to be a waste of time and money for him. So these are things that you really have to, I think, when you're talking to your kids, know your kids. Um, because I remember times, and I'm sure you've run into this too, where parents want their kids to go to a certain school. There's a status to going to an Ivy League school, going to another type of school. And if your kid is not ready for that, who is benefiting? Is it you? Because you can say, "Oh, my kid is at such and such school," or is it for your child? I think you really have to know what your child is good at and not good at.
Well, and one of the things on that note, I try and talk to a lot of parents about is think about the ROI of school. Think about the ROI of college. What is your return on investment going to be? For your nephew, it makes zero sense to go get a 4-year degree. He can go out and start making great money as an electrician, as a tradesman, and have a fantastic career doing that if that's what he chooses to do for a long time. Going and getting a degree in whatever would just be a waste of money, legitimately. So one of the things we really try and encourage parents to think about and try to encourage them to talk to their kids about when they're in high school is like, what do you see yourself doing in the future? Would a degree make sense for that or not? Now, to ask a 16, 17-year-old that, well, they might not know, and that's okay. And maybe you go to community college for the first year, for the second year, save some money that way. There's lots of other routes, but I just think we see far too many kids going to school, getting a degree, never using their degree, and having student loan debt for nothing to show for it. There are certain careers, maybe mine or medicine or engineering or whatever. I mean, you got to get a degree. That's how it works to get into the field. Electrician, go to trade school. I mean, you could always go back to a traditional university later if you wanted to. But no point in going and getting a communications degree to go be an electrician. So there's actually studies out there that I think it's Georgetown or somebody who does this, like, I have it saved somewhere, the ROI of each university, breaking it down and basically looking at, post-grad earnings versus debt coming out, things like that. It's really interesting. But it's conversations, maybe even just taking a step back that you can start having with your kids in high school. And so stepping away from the college discussion for a second and talking about sort of maybe middle school, high school, one of the things I encourage is being open about your family's financial situation with your child when you feel like they're mature enough and old enough to understand that. That's something I wish my parents would have done growing up, has just been more open with that and really sitting me down and talking me through, like, hey, here's how much money we make. Here's where our money goes. Here's why it goes here. Now, that only works if you as the parent are responsible with your money and you actually have good habits yourself and can pass those habits. You can't expect your child to form good habits if you are buried in credit card debt and all these things that are self-inflicted. Of course, there's circumstances where people have things put upon them, whatever, divorce or something like that, where it's maybe not wasn't planned for or wasn't totally self-inflicted. But if you have good money habits, pass those along to your kid. Teach them about how much you're saving. Maybe if you're giving to charities, why you're giving to those charities, why it's important. Walking them through the basics of a budget. Here's money that comes in, money that goes out. Here's what we have left over, and here's what we do with that. Credit cards. How does a credit card work? I never forget my mom who, when she got out of college and she got her first credit card, she just thought it was like free money. So she just spent all the credit card, maxed them out. Then she met my dad, and my dad was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, it's just money. Can't I just spend it?" Well, she literally didn't even know, and I don't think that's an uncommon scenario. She said, "Oh, I've got a
Right,
balance on my credit card. I can spend it." Well,
right.
teach your kids that credit card is a great financial tool if it's used properly. Um, Taxes, the basic of like how do taxes work? You make money, and then the government's going to take some of it from you, right? And I remember my sister when she got her first job out of college. She looked at her first paycheck and she said, "Who is FICA?" And it's like, well, that is Uncle Sam, Social Security and Medicare to be exact, taking some of your money, and just like the shock of like how much was taken out. These are things that we can begin to give basic education on, um, uh, sort of as your child gets older and mature. And one other thing is investing, and really instilling in them like how does compound interest work. If you buy stocks, if you buy real estate. Another great example that I've had a client share with me is when their kids were really little, they gave them each like I don't know, a couple $100, and they said each of their kid could pick a stock and a company to invest in. And so they each kid picked their own stock, and over the years they could see it grow and uh, come down and go back up and all these things. And it teaches them the value of investing and compounding interest over time. I just thought that was a really cool way to have those conversations. I'm sure it's kind of fun for the family. Maybe one kid wants to invest in Disney stock. Maybe one wants to invest in their favorite video game company. I like whatever, something that they actually care about. It's not about the money growing or whatever. It's just about teaching them the value of investing. So lots of things you could do.
I do have a question. Now you're talking about parents, but what if the parents aren't comfortable or they don't feel like they have the knowledge to share with their kids, but they do want to educate their kids? How do you, what suggestion do you have to help parents who aren't as secure with a financial background? Where can they go to get help so they can then teach their kids, or where can they show their kids to get the information?
Well, first of all, I think a parent who might feel that way is probably underestimating themselves, because they you a parent would have way more knowledge than their 15, 16-year-old child, right? I think every parent at a base level understands like, hey, I can explain what taxes are. I can explain, what investing is at just its most basic level. So I would venture to say that pretty much every parent could do the basics. From there, if you have a financial advisor like myself or Ryan Potterack, we've done that with kids where our clients just want us to have a conversation with their kids to give general education on whatever. We do that. We're happy to do that. We love doing that. There's lots of great resources out there that I don't know off the top of my head, but books, financial education websites like Dave Ramsey and stuff like that have good stuff for kids. Off the top of my head, I can't name any of those books, but I've seen them. But there's plenty out there.
All right, Alec, we've been talking for a while. Is there anything you want to just wrap up this podcast with, some final thoughts?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, when your child gets in that high school age range, opening a bank account for them, I think, is a great idea, and letting them actually see their bank account grow, and take money out to make them spend money on items that they want, so they can understand, like things like opportunity costs. Like, okay, well, you want the shoes and the video game. Well, you got to save for that, and you can only buy one right now. That's teaching them opportunity costs. But just basic stuff like seeing what a bank account is, and maybe even having a debit card that they can use to spend from that, is helping them understand sort of how money flows in and out of a bank account. And then another thing that's a great idea is adding a child as an authorized user to a credit card. And some credit card companies have age minimums for that. Some don't. So you can add them as an authorized user, and they may never use the credit card, but their name is on the account. And some credit card companies, when they reach 18, they'll report a lot of that transaction history on your child's credit report. So it kind of gives them a foundation of credit being built. So that's not a bad idea to think about as your kid gets older. So lots of ideas. Hopefully, folks had a few ideas that maybe they hadn't thought of before through our conversation today, RJ. Lots of ways to do it. No perfect way to do it. Obviously, you got to parent your kid how you feel is best, but hopefully there's some nuggets in there for people today to implement with their family.
Definitely a lot of information that was very, it just sounds very useful. How can people contact you, Alec?
Yeah, so they can always visit our website, www.potterack.net. We are on socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. And they can always call us at 704-366-5776. And we're happy to connect with anyone who might be listening to this who has not gotten acquainted with our firm.
Okay, thanks. Looking forward to your next podcast, Alec, and thank you for listening to today's Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, for Alec, I'm RJ Malik.
Thank you for listening to Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. To ask questions about topics covered during the show, or get a copy of Making It Count, Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet by Ryan Potterack, visit www.potterack.net or give us a call at 704-366-5776. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Potterack Capital Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Potterack Capital Advisory does not offer legal or tax advice. Please consult the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstances. Nothing contained herein is to be considered a solicitation, research material, an investment recommendation, or advice of any kind. The information contained herein may contain information that is subject to change without notice. Any investments or strategies referenced herein do not take into account the investment objectives, financial situation, or particular needs of any specific person.
Product sustainability must be independently determined for each individual investor. Potterack Capital Advisory explicitly disclaims any responsibility for product suitability or suitability determinations related to individual investors.